Hey there, Saki here from Saki Tech. In today's video, I want to share the completed gaming PC build that I recently talked about in one of my videos. Now, just for your reference, here's a list of all the components I used to build this PC. And of course, you will find the full list below in the description as well, along with prices and links to the exact components. In this video, I want to talk about performance and some of the special features of the components I used to build this video, which might give you some useful information. So let's dive in. Now, in my original video, I had said that I built this PC for 1080p gaming with ultra settings and a constant 60 plus FPS for smooth and buttery gameplay for the latest and most graphic intensive titles on the market. Titles such as Crysis 3, Assassin's Creed Unity and Syndicate, Gears of War 4, Grand Theft Auto 5, and more. Now, I already know this PC is an overkill to achieve that project of 1080p gaming. I have actually been playing these games on my wide-angle HP monitor, which has a resolution of 3440 by 1440. Now, obviously, that is not 4K resolution. 4K resolution is 3840 by 2160. But now, even though my monitor is 3440 by 1440, I actually have been gaming at 2560 by 1440, which is technically called Quad HD resolution. In any case, this PC is just a monster. It plays Crysis 3, Witcher 3, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, Far Cry 4, and Grand Theft Auto with ultra presets, everything maxed out at a constant 60 plus frames per second. It's a beast. Now at 4K, we fall below the 60 frames per second, but it still remains above 30 frames per second. And mostly it is in the high 40s, which is also fantastic. But 4K gaming is not my aim anyway. My aim originally was 1080p, but it seems 1440p is my new standard because it plays so smoothly and so nicely. So there's a kind of frames per second you should expect if you build a similar computer. Alright, so let's quickly take a look at the case here and what's inside. But like I said, the full list is below in case you want to check out individual components in more depth. The first thing I want to talk about is the actual case. The in-wing case allows you to have a total of 7 fans, 3 at the bottom as intake, 1 at the back as an exhaust, and 3 at the top as exhaust fans. In this build, I'm only using 6 fans, 3 at the bottom and 3 at the top. It's simple, to the point, and looks really nice. But what I really do like about this case is its minimalist design and the LED lights on the front side to highlight all the front ports as well as the logo. Cable management is good too, but not quite as good as I had hoped. One thing I really hate is that the 3 fans at the bottom actually overlap part of the motherboard, which is a defect that needs to be addressed. It's still manageable with a little bit of work, but it might be hard for somebody that is not too experienced with building computers. Now, beyond that, the case has great airflow and a great design. But for anybody considering this case, just be aware that the bottom 3 fans will overlap a little bit of the motherboard. As a matter of fact, it makes one of the PCIe Express slots inaccessible, which thankfully I do not need to use right now. The next thing I want to quickly touch on is the CPU cooler that I'm using for this build. Anytime you buy a CPU, you want to buy a Hypercooler Evo 212, which is a third-party fan that will cool your CPU like a champion. It's quite inexpensive, and that is why I recommend it. It's only around $30 and does a great job even on heavy CPU load. Now, of course, you can buy some liquid cooling options. If you have the money, by all means do that. That's much better than the Hyper Evo 212. But the Hypercooler 212 is very good at the price point. For $30, it keeps your CPU nice and cool and prevents any kind of overheating. Now, the biggest thing I want to talk about though is the M.2 socket on the motherboard that accepts the M.2 type solid state drive. An M.2 socket on the motherboard allows you to plug in the M.2 type SSD directly onto the motherboard. So you can plug the hard drive right on the motherboard. The benefits for this are twofold. Firstly, as long as the M.2 socket has a PCIe interface, you get exponential read and write speeds. Secondly, unlike a regular 3.5 inch or a 2.5 inch hard drive format, you do not need to run a power and a SATA cable, which means reduced cables and easier cable management on the case inside the case itself. Now, as you can see in the picture, the M.2 solid-state drive is plugged right into my motherboard into the M.2 socket. The motherboard will feed it the required power. And of course, if you look into my case, you will see that there's a lack of the standard 2.5-inch or 3.5-inch hard drive, which makes a lot of free space in the case, which means more airflow as well. So there really are a lot of benefits to having this M.2 type socket. And as you may or may not know, when you are buying a M.2 solid-state drive, just make sure the one you buy is supported by the motherboard you choose. For instance, the Intel 600p solid-state drive that I purchased has a form factor of M.2 2280, which means it is 22 millimeters wide and 80 millimeters long. By checking the specs of my motherboard, I am able to see that this form factor of 2280 is in fact supported. Additionally, the interface for this M.2 slot is PCIe 3.0x4, and again, my motherboard supports that interface. So everything has to match. So make sure when you're shopping for your next gaming PC, consider buying a motherboard that does have an M.2 type socket. And of course, the reason being is that you're going to get high read and write speeds, in fact, much higher than regular SATA, which is capped at 6 gigabits per second. You're going to have less cables to manage in your case and hence more airflow in the case, especially also due to the lack of regular sized hard drives that create more density in your case. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about in this video. Again, if you replicate this setup, you will have quite a powerful gaming and video editing machine. 1080p gaming is going to be no problem with ultra settings and 60 plus frames per second. And like I showcased, 1440p is also going to be a walk in the park for this PC. Again, ultra settings, 1440p, 60 plus frames per second. And although this is an expensive setup, when you look at the latest Apple MacBook Pros or Microsoft Surfaces, these self-built PCs seem reasonable at this price point, and they're also much more powerful. So just something to think about if you're considering buying a MacBook Pro or a Microsoft Surface Book. Alright people, make sure you subscribe to Saki Tech, give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you the next time. Have a fantastic day.